Okay, so we are going to be looking at the Additional Maths 2016 summer paper. So we'll start on question 1, which is a factorising of a quadratic question. So when I factorise a quadratic, I'm going to multiply my coefficient of x squared by my constant. That's going to give me negative 84. Okay, so we'll come back to that in just a second. I'm going to set up a box. And my x squared term is going to go into the top left. My constant term is going to go into the bottom right. And the two that are left over in the middle are going to make my x's. Okay, it's the number of x's that I want. And they're going to add up to give negative 84. So if I go through the factors of 84, I get 1 and 84. Again, I'm ignoring the negative sign at the moment. I've got 2 and 42. I have 3. And it goes in 28. Have 4 and 21. 5 doesn't go into it. 6 goes into it 14 times. 7 will go into it 12 times. 8 doesn't go into it. 9 doesn't go into it. 10 doesn't go into it. 11 doesn't. Okay, so those are all our factors. So I now need one of them to be positive and one of them to be negative because they multiply to give a negative. Because they add to give a negative overall, the bigger one is going to be negative. So if I make all the bigger ones negative, and we're looking for the one that adds to give negative 8, which is going to be this one here, positive 6, negative 14. So that's going to be our x's, plus 6x, negative 14. Oops. Okay, and now we're going to look at factorising. So I'm going to take a look at this box and figure out what can factorise. So if I look at the numbers first, 21 and 6, well, 3 is a common factor of both. And then if I look at x squared and x is a common factor of both. So 3x times this value is 21x squared. Well, that's going to be 7x. 3x times this value is going to be plus 6x. That's going to be plus 2. And then 7x times this value is negative 14. So that's going to be negative 2. And as a double check, negative 2 times positive 2 should give me negative 4. So that's the work done. I just have to write it out in factorised form to say that it gives us 3x minus 2. 7x plus 2. And then hence solve the equation. So it's going to be the 21x squared plus 8 minus 8x minus 4 equals 0, which we can now write as 3x minus 2. 7x plus 2 equals 0. So we now have a product that gives us 0. So one of the terms in that product has to be 0, at least. So either the 3... Strange blip. So either the 3x minus 2 is 0, in which case we'll have 0 multiplied by something, which will give us 0. Or the second part of the product, the 7x plus 2, is going to be 0, in which case we've got something times by 0, which will also give us 0. So if we solve these two equations, I can add 2 to both sides with this one to give me 3x is 2, and then divide both sides by 3, gives me x is 2/3. On this one, I'm going to take off the 2 first, so I get 7x equals negative 2, and then divide by the 7, so I get negative 2/7. Okay. B. Use the method of completing the square to find the least value of this. So, when I'm completing the square, I look at the first 2 terms, and I'm going to create a bracket using half of that coefficient. So x plus 6 all squared. Now the x plus 6 square will give me x squared plus 12x plus 36. I don't want that plus 36, so I'm going to take the 36 away, which is the square of this. And then I'm going to put on the constant that I do want, which is plus 49. So that leads us to x plus 6 all squared plus 13. So what that will do, the plus 6 sends us 6 to the left. And the plus 13 outside sends us 13 up. So this is going to look like, if I sketch it, and it's always worth sketching. So we had an initial parabola. So it looks something like that. That's going to go, so at the moment we've got this bottom point here, goes through 0, 0. And I move that 6 to the left and 13 up. Okay, so we've got 6 to the left, 13 up. Scale doesn't matter. So when we're trying to find the least value of this curve, that's the lowest height, because up here we've got it's infinity. Then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, lower and lower and lower, less and less and less, until it gets to here, which is 13, and then it starts increasing again. So the least value is 13. And then what is the value of x when this graph has its least value? Well, the value of x when it has its least value is going to be -6.